Hello, and welcome back to the Lazy Phasey Oddcast of Wonder and Whimsy. I am your humble host, Doogsley Doogertons, and as usual, I'm happy to be here. Today, we are going to be chit-chatting with a lovely, lovely friend of mine who goes by the name of KNIMBLEY. When I was first conjuring this oddcast in my mind, I immediately knew that one of the pillars that I wanted to introduce pretty quickly to the flow of the oddcast was interviews, and specifically interviews with, one, people who I admire and who I enjoy spending time with, which maybe not like a mutually exclusive aspects, but they are to me. I look up to a lot of my friends. And two, people who inspire me, who are creative, who are academics in their field, and I just want to kind of pick their brain about some stuff. And KNIMBLEY fell under both of those categories for me. And I mean, first of all, as soon as you hear her voice, you're just going to be drifted away into this angelic state of mind. She speaks so softly, but she's Gemini. So she has an incredible vernacular and a grasp of just keeping you engaged and so cozy. It's definitely their strong suit. And what we talk about a lot throughout the Oddcast episode is her journey through streaming and her journeys through lore keeping, which is a big bulk of her streams, which is just a pretty cool way of saying that she really likes the stories of the games that are told. And so she talks about her adventures through that, and of course through Zelda, which is mostly why I'm bringing her on now, following up the Zelda astrology episode, because I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again. I was on her podcast called the Ethereal Femme Lorekeeper podcast, and on my episode on that podcast, we dove deep and talked about the astrology of, well, for me, Majora's Mask. It's my favorite game, so that was what I was on there mostly talking about, but also the first Zelda game too, because if you watch the previous Zelda astrology episode, you'll kind of understand why the birth chart of Zelda in and of itself, everything kind of leads back to that. And it's not even like repaying the favor, it's just like, I don't know, I really had fun talking to you, and now I want to bring you into my stage, and I get to sort of now pick your brain about all of these little intricacies of why do you do this, and what do you feel when you do this, which a lot of this is talking about streaming, like I said, and lore keeping, like I said. We talk a bit about spirituality and astrology and living so soft and sensitive in a world gone mad and trying to balance all of these intense feelings that we navigate life with, and how tough that can be, but rewarding it is. And we talk about nature. I don't know. We talk about a whole bunch of different stuff in this, and I am so excited for you to just listen in on this conversation, which was just so wonderful to be a part of. So I recommend you get a tasty drink. KNIMBLEY and I are matcha connoisseurs. This is a wonderful interview if you have a little cup of matcha or green tea at your side, and I hope you enjoy. Oh, one last thing. Ooh, I almost stopped recording. Hold on. Just keep in mind that this episode is in the thick of not only Mercury retrograde, but retrograde season, and we definitely met with some technical difficulties, especially at the beginning of the episode. So just respect some weird audio cuts for the first 20 minutes, but after that, it should be smooth sailing. So just look out for that, and don't be too disturbed. I promise I didn't cut anything too egregious. Once again, thank you for listening, and I hope you listen even more for the next 2 hours, because you are about to be bombarded with two mercurial, fae-coded, chipper, twee, and eloquent individuals that just love to talk. Affectionate, by the way. So maybe the Oddcast starts around now. Hi.
Hello.
Interview. Hi, everyone. I guess let's start with, in theory, I just introduced you to everyone,
Mhm.
but maybe would you like to introduce yourself and what you feel is important to share with the world? Who you
Yeah.
are, who NIMBLEY is?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Nimbley, also known as your High Femme comforting friend and lorekeeper on the internet. I like fantasy games and science and magic and the convergence of those things and many others. And I am so excited to talk to you today, Doogsley, because I
Aw.
admire you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. I admire you too. That's why I'm you're here. You know, I wanted to create this a part of the Oddcast space to be bringing on people who I want to lift up their voices and just give them even more of a stand to reach others on, because I love your content and I love who you are and what you represent, and I think that we are two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
because we are both very deep in geekery, nerdy video games, anime, while on the other hand being in this very tender spiritual lifestyle, or world, or just simply being more open to it, because I feel
Mhm.
like, and I do feel like that Venn diagram is becoming more circular as time goes on. I feel like this like niche witchy video gamey femme presenting individual is becoming more common, but
Mhm.
I'm excited to talk to you in particular about indeed the convergence of all of those things. And I guess to start, I'm just curious. I wanted to know how your full moon has gone.
God, to another dimension, I think is probably the best way to put it. That has like a neutral weight to it. It's transcendent. It's dreamy, but it's also and weirdly grounding. I think when I was looking at the moon yesterday, I'm sure you like got a great view of it. Just
It was beautiful, indeed.
yeah, like I'd never seen anything like it before. Like it
She was humongous.
huge, so like white, like
I
bright
know.
light. It was
A
surreal.
spotlight.
Yeah, and then there was like this faint blue ring around it, and I was like, is it because of my glasses, or is that what's going on? I'm like, do I care? That's my favorite color. I'm just gonna say that that's what's going on here. Um, but it was really, yeah, like it said, grounding in a way, and I think it felt that way to me because it kind of reminded me of my and this is like a little bit of an aside. I was really looking forward to chatting with you because I don't feel like I always feel like myself when I'm presenting, like, on the internet. But I feel
Mhm.
like that kind of dreamier manner of speaking and existing, like, is very welcome in your space. So if I have like little
Mhm.
pauses, it's because I'm just like soaking that all in.
Oh, yes,
um,
please. I mean, a part of that magic, I think, between the two of us is you would consider yourself like a Gemini dominant, right?
oh
You got
yeah,
a lot of Gemini, or you feel heavily leaning in Gemini.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm the same way. I got my Gemini sun and moon, like right on top of each other. So like, so much of my life is just led through like the way I speak it out, and then
exactly.
yeah, and well, I want to, if you don't mind me asking you a couple questions about your
Please,
chart.
yeah.
So where is your Pisces in your chart? Do you know what house that's in?
Let me look. I have my time passages app here. That's the most preparation I wanted to do because I didn't want to overthink it. I do got my mercurial nervousness. So
No.
let me see. So my first house would be Capricorn. Second
Mm.
house, yeah. So third house,
Oh, well, there
yeah,
it is. There's that
yeah.
dreamy speak that I feel has radiated off of you from the first time that I found your channel. First time I found you speaking online, I'm like, oh my gosh, this water sign Mercury, or something. Like there has to be some sort of mercurial, like and then it made sense because you got that Gemini prowess that just like radiates off of you, because I think that you have such a unique like dichotomy to the way that you navigate through your stream, because you have this very naturally like corporeally soft voice, but you are a chatterbox. You're able to go and go and go and just like entertain yourself and entertain everyone else. And I remember the first time I watched you, and I think at first glance or at first listen, a lot of people are like, oh, like probably like, and not that you're like not introverted. I think that you're likely somewhere in the middle. I think most Geminis are, where like you can sort of go on and then off. But I think that you're able to. When I first found you, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, she's so, like, sweet, soft-spoken, like, but then, like, you just kept talking, and I was like, oh, yes. Like, this is awesome. Like, I want to hear more of this. Like, this rules. I love this.
Like, oh, you just, like, didn't shut up. It was awesome. I love it. Yeah. I mean that in the best way. Like, it's very affirming to hear that from you. Because, yeah, I mean, we just go, like, Energizer Bunny.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess, my third house is in Pisces. That makes sense because Saturn is hanging out there.
Yeah. True. Yeah. Are you going through your Saturn return as well, or?
It feels like it. I'm technically past it, but I think I'm in that in between Saturn and Jupiter return.
Oh yeah,
cleanup phase. Which feels really good. Like I think that's one thing that I really love about astrology is that it kind of provides some insight into what the heck is going on.
Yeah, at least like thickens the story in some way where it's like, okay, I'm not like unhinged for feeling this way.
Yes.
There's something else that is subtly dancing with this unhinged energy that I'm just like gravitating towards over and over again. And that's interesting that you've gone through your Saturn return. I'm in the thick of mine at the moment. So that I guess I'm a little younger than you. That's interesting. I thought I pictured us the same age, but yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's an aside for me.
Oh, I was talking about groundedness, like how like looking at the moon made me feel. I guess because it's like a celestial body, and it's got that physicality to it, and even though you're feeling that, I'm sure you can relate to this. I don't feel like I need to like qualify this like I would in other spaces, but just reminding myself that one, there's like this whole universe that's much larger than me and whatever I might be trying to sort out during this full moon phase, but also just like that I'm connected to other things as well. Like it's not like it's just this vast, vacuous space that I'm occupying. Like I'm a part of it. So that was like really nice. And like, of course I was a little soft and teary yesterday and today, but it felt good. It felt good. It definitely draining, but good.
Yeah. Like it's funny. I think a lot of people have been building up this full moon to be super emotional, which I think any watery full moon is going to shed some tears. But like, this felt like so many, at least for me, maybe this is a me thing, but like I felt like my heart was like wide open last night.
Yeah.
But like in a safe and like I didn't feel like I had to cry. I think some people had to cry, but like I just felt like I just had to just be open to like all the Pisces goodness. I'm a Pisces rising, so like that
makes sense. I could see it so dreamy.
Yeah. Like that just like veils the rest of my chaos, of my mercurial like nonsense. So like it's this silly mutable dance that I feel is just constantly happening in my chart. But
you're like a kaleidoscope.
Thank you. I've used that before. Kaleidopop was my username for a long time.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
That was my go-to for a long time. But I did want to bring you on here. We will probably be talking about astrology and spirituality just like intermittently throughout this whole process. But there are some specific things I wanted to pick your brain about regarding streaming, regarding video games, regarding I at the end I want to pick your brain about High Femme and what that means to you. But I think I want to start with streaming with you because that's how I found you. I found your stream one day. I believe it was through a mutual friend of ours named Gucky. who's
Yeah.
based and hilarious, by the way. Shout out to Gucky. I think Gucky one day just was like listing out a whole bunch of like usernames of like comfy streamers that they like, and I chose your name because it reminded me of Doogsley. We have the Ley.
Yeah.
The camaraderie that happens there, and I followed you, and I waited until you streamed. Then you streamed, and you had an adorable mechanical keyboard. You had like Sanrio all over your desk. You were drinking matcha. I was like, all right, we're kindred spirits, and
Oh yeah.
and I just kept showing up, and lurking and then not lurking, and I just wanted to ask you in particular, like streaming, how is that for you, and especially as we haven't really touched upon this yet, but like you're a sensitive soul like I am, like we're tender souls, and I wanted to just kind of understand like how is that for you, including the sensitivities of just who you are. It's quite vulnerable being a streamer.
Oh yeah. Oh God. Okay, those are.
I know. I just threw a whole bunch at you.
You know what? It's fine. I'm gonna. We're here. We're here. This is like a great springboard.
Okay.
One, I'm so glad that our paths crossed. I still will never forget. I think Gucky had readed it into you. What's the first stream of yours that I saw you were doing? You were like in the middle of a super long tarot stream, and I just like stayed there for like 4 hours or something while I was braiding my hair. And yeah, I've pretty much been there ever since. I don't remember exactly when I followed you, but I know it's been almost a few years at least.
Yeah, I think we're like at the 2.5 year mark of us knowing each other, which is pretty crazy. Yeah,
that's wild.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's yeah. Anyway, so I'll keep that in the back of my mind for later talking point. But how is streaming for me? I would say it's like a net positive. And I try not to attach like value to the things that I do, but I feel like for streaming, I feel comfortable doing that because I feel that oftentimes in the streaming space, there can understandably be kind of a bitterness when people talk about different aspects of it, just because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of output, but like in every part of who we are as people and creators. But for me, it's really fulfilling because I get to, like I said, like it gives me a platform to just never shut up, but also like share like things that I love and am passionate about, and like show all of my different facets. Like I've previously felt like I had to kind of like just code switch for different spaces that I'm in, and I still have to do that to a certain extent, and I can like talk about that after I give the overview. But I feel like since I've streamed, I've felt the most authentic to myself as an overall person, which is something that I never thought that I would feel as like a Gemini, Stellium, Pisces, like adjacent dominant person, like Neptune in the first. I'm like, it's very cloudy, that sense of self. But I love that. I love the people that I've met. Like I feel like I've been able to explore life because of it. Like I feel adventurous because, like you said, like, yeah, I'm incredibly sensitive. And I don't necessarily mean that in a positive all the time. Like I can be like, boundaries are tough. And as a creator, that's really important. And, I'll get more into that later, but overall it's been positive and it's been really rewarding, part of my life. And, I'm sure like many people, like we feel very different from how we were at the start of, the pandemic, but I feel like that's a direct result of me just putting myself out there as a creator.
Yeah. Wait, so
yeah.
when did you start streaming exactly?
I started streaming in like the late summer, early fall of 2020.
Oh, so you are a pandemic streamer.
Yeah, but I've been on Twitch, I want to say since 2015 or 2016.
Okay.
For Overwatch. That's pretty much all I watch.
Wait,
And then I had,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So KNIMBLEY was my Overwatch username from
Mm.
when I played on console like years and years ago, and it was derived from just me doing yoga for a long time. I was like, oh, this sounds cute and is relevant and like hopefully
Oh.
easy to pronounce. And like it's not, I get Kimberly, Knimberly, and all the above. And you know, that's fine. That's fine. You know,
Doogsley.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, not dogs. Oh,
Woof.
oh, nor. Um, but yeah. So and I'd always wanted to try to stream because I would do like streams on Instagram when I was
Mm.
like an artist in like a different lifetime. Like I did a lot of like radical like queer art with my friends and community,
Oh.
and I would just like stream myself. Like it was so silly. I've never talked about this on stream before actually, so you're getting
Mm.
exclusive content on the
Hear that?
Oddcast. But I am a part of like the rave culture, like from like the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's like very queer, very trans, very colorful, very like I said, like radical and creative and awesome.
Mhm.
And I would indulge in the creative side of that just by like dancing to my friends' music on Instagram Live
Mm.
on like an old account that I don't have anymore. And I was like, people kind of like watching me do stuff. So I was doing that for like off and on, like maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And this was right around when I learned what Twitch was. It had nothing to do with my life in real life, but I figured like, oh, like people do this, like and you know this from like esports, but I always thought that you needed to have like a super like decked out rig to stream, and like it needed to be all fancy and stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, maybe someday when I'm like rich. And I ended up, I think probably in 2017 or 2018, I saw that on my PlayStation there was like a feature to stream onto Facebook. So I streamed and this is before like Facebook gaming existed. It was just like you could just do a live stream
Yeah.
like from your PlayStation, and I would stream me and my friends like playing Drawful. So
Oh.
yeah, so we were just like, and there were people couldn't hear the microphone or anything of what you were doing, but I just remember having so much fun doing that. And like my friends and family that would watch, like it was bordering on like feral and unhinged because it's Drawful, and we
Yeah.
would be like,
Yeah.
you know, like crossfaded and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's so
But
silly. I love that.
yeah. But anyway, that's how I got started. And
And
like
you found your way onto Twitch eventually, and
yeah.
what did you start streaming with? Were you just chatting or video games of any kind?
Games, yeah. So
Cool.
one of the first games that I streamed, even though I was playing Overwatch regularly, was Dark Souls.
Oh, okay.
Because like that was like one of my favorite games. But I think the first official game that I streamed was a fresh playthrough of Dragon Age Inquisition, because I thought like, oh, you know, this. I don't think I had a mic at the time that I plugged in, because I didn't know how to do that on my PlayStation. But yeah, I was just streaming Dragon Age Inquisition and Dark Souls 1. And it was only like, you know, like everyone starts out, it's like well, everyone before the big boom of streamers, I feel like you know, it's just like your friends and family watching. And one day I had a moment, capital M, and I think I just got paid from my job, and I had been watching some Animal Crossing New Horizons creators, and I was like, you know what? I have like 1,000 hours in this game. I've just been fishing and not decorating. Like, I kind of want to stream Animal Crossing. So I just spontaneously bought an Elgato capture card at Target.
Yeah.
I did not, I think I like declined my bank account or something to get it. Like, do not do that. If you're listening to this, do not do that. But I think like in the first week, I came across one of my really good friends, Mar, who had a different username at the time that I met them, but they are friends with Gucky.
Okay.
And they raided me. So that's how I like met all of my community.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah,
with just
sometimes
some
like
random
that
raid.
one raid just changes it all, you know, and all of a sudden you just got 20 new community members. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And that's why raiding's so cool, and I should do it more.
Yeah.
It brings us together on something that's so, especially nowadays, so oversaturated. That is Twitch. It's such an oversaturated platform, and there's so many people streaming, and I think that like, well, oh wait, another thing I just remembered right now is that you started off camless, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, I was
And you've
faceless.
evolved
Yeah.
into a cam streamer. How has that been? What made you decide to do that? Because for those listening who don't know, I've been historically camless forever, and I think I might always will be? Question mark. So I'm very curious about what your thought process and adventure was into using a camera. If there even was
Sorry.
one, maybe you just decided to.
Like a reason why I did it? I
Yeah.
think, well, a big part of it is that I have, I guess, like, well, I'll just give a content warning for like a phobia that I have, just in case. You don't have to include this. You can edit it out if it's not necessary. But I have agoraphobia, which is like a fear of like unknown experiences, or basically just kind of like a fear of the unknown and not liking surprises and stuff like that. And I think for me, the way that manifested was just having really, really, really bad social anxiety around like being perceived by people that I couldn't see. And also just like having been on Twitch as long as I had been, I had seen a lot of really intense things from the streamers that I watch. And I figured like, oh, I'm like, nobody watches my streams, like especially like when I first started, but I still felt that like fear of like, I don't know, being judged, I guess, because I think, and it could be very different for other people, but one thing for me that was scary for not being a faceless streamer is just, I don't know, I guess I could be more detached from like my fears of other people if they didn't know what I looked like, and it was just like my voice, and they could focus more on the game and stuff that I was doing, and like I felt like less on edge because like I'm autistic, and it's like sometimes I forget to emote. So like not verbally, but like my face, like sometimes I'll just have really bad RBF, and I was like, oh, I don't want people to think that I'm mad, or like and it was very like nice. But then I think I really like fashion and like like decorating in my real life, and I was like, you know what, like, I'm just gonna like try to put myself out there. And I think right before I started streaming with a cam, I also haven't talked about this on stream. I kind of went through a lot of challenging things in my interpersonal relationships that had affected my self-esteem. So I really chose streaming to kind of build myself back up again. And I felt like, all right, like people like hanging out with me. I'm just kind of doing, just like essentially hanging out with folks. Like maybe I can try push myself out of my comfort zone and like.
Right. The stakes already felt pretty low because you were in a safe space that you yourself had curated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I knew that the people that were there were like safe people. And we had so many shared things in common, because like that's the thing that really makes me value my friendships that I've cultivated online, is that I don't feel like we always have that choice of community as easily in person. Just like even like geographically, like I live somewhere where there are a lot of young like queer folks and stuff, but it's not the same as like I can talk about like pretty much anything with like you and our mutual friends, right? Like I really like appreciated that. And I think I just was like, okay, this will be the next step. And this is just how I felt personally. I don't think that this needs to apply to anyone else. But for me, I was like, okay, well, if I can just like put myself out there like visually, maybe people will be able to connect with me more, because they'll be able to like see the person behind
Mm-hmm.
the voice, I guess.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing that.
And I think that's a common thought, because like I think that camless streamers are more rare than ever.
Yeah.
Especially with VTubing, because I think a lot of people who just choose to be camless just choose to VTube instead, which I think is a totally different category from faceless streaming. It's its own monster affectionate.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
it's just something completely different. But yeah, like it's interesting to hear that, because like I just uttered the words like I don't know if I'll ever use camera, but it has been something that's been on my mind more often lately, because it's exactly like you said. I want to connect on not even like a deeper level, but like on a new level, like something that I've just never tried before with stream. Like and I think that's very brave that you decided to take that leap, but I also think it was very wise that you took that leap in that community, because I can say firsthand, being a part of your community and observing your community over so many years, that it's a deeply, deeply safe and radical space to be in. And I think that with the baby steps you've taken to become the streamer and entertainer and I guess, for lack of a better term, like content creator that you are today, like it's I think it's all been culminating at this really like I feel gentle pace. In some ways, I could be wrong. You could be like blown over by how fast you've grown, which I do think you had like a magical spurt somewhere in there that was just obviously aligned with like you, and you just like showing up more and taking streaming more seriously. And I guess that leads me to the next question, which is like, would you want streaming to be how do I word this? Like, how deep are you into streaming right now, and how much longer? I know this is such an amalgamous question. Do you want to keep pursuing this? Do you have like any like goals in mind for streaming that you want to hit, or is it like you're here for the ride right now? You're enjoying yourself.
God, that is such a good question. So for me, I really feel like I kind of am just starting, because
Sure.
even though I started streaming at the end of August in 2020. Is it August? I can't remember. No, we're in the end of August. I'm tired. So I started streaming, and I think it was the very end of September, early October in 2020. I took a pretty long hiatus after I did my face reveal, actually, because that was kind of overwhelming. I think if I could go back to my past self, I would say you can take a few more baby steps. Like if you decide you don't want to do cam, like you don't have to go from 0 to 100.
Sure.
So I took like a 4-month break, and then I came back and streamed for a little bit and took another break, and then so I personally feel like it's been like about 1.5 years that I've been streaming regularly, and where it felt like it switched from being something that I did that was fulfilling I don't want to say in a general sense, but it's something that brought me a lot of fulfillment, just like as a gamer and a creator, to shifting to where I was more of like and only by my own understanding of it, like I think that anyone that creates content is a content creator, but where it was like, it went from me being a streamer that's vibing with my friends to like, oh, this is like my job now.
Yeah, my career. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a lot more of a new development for me. So that's been under 1 year. So I still feel very much like it's just beginning for me. And I've been spending, I've been spending a lot of time since the last few retrogrades that I don't know, I think we have like 5 planets in retrograde.
Yeah, it's retrograde season for sure. Holy moly.
I've been trying to trim back on the different ways that I've branched out and really tailor it down to it's almost like I'm returning to source. Like when I first started streaming, I was doing it to essentially showcase myself and like the things that I enjoyed. And then I kind of branched off into like all the different things that I enjoyed doing on stream, and then we like kind of what is that thing called? Bottleneck into like lore keeping, which is still very much like a core part of who I am. I think I'm like releasing that bottleneck and returning back to like me as like nimbly, like a person, and that's felt really nice, because like we were talking about it before, like what's that like being sensitive, but
yeah, that was going to be my next question too.
Oh, okay.
Like just like sensitive streaming and like navigating that space. Yeah, feel free to keep going. I just thought I'd let you know that I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, and I can actually just like let you ask your question, and then you know, like
I mean, it's exactly that. Like, I'm so curious about, like, because I guess for those listening, like, Nimbley and I, we're both spoonies. I believe we both have, like, chronic illnesses that flare up, and we just need time, you know, to heal usually. And I know how, first of all, on a very mundane scale, that can be damaging to a stream, because, like, you say you're going to stream, the proverbial you, not you in particular, but like us, I guess we say we're gonna stream, and then it's like, oh shit, like I can't today, and it sucks. But then like also the sensitivity of like just being a spoonie in general, and just like I guess being just like a highly sensitive person on top of that, navigating streaming, and you mentioned earlier like struggling with boundaries and stuff. I don't know. it's not even like a question. It's just sort of like, let's talk about that. I'm very curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So, so the first part of that, and I think this is just like a part of my lore, you had mentioned something about there being, I can't remember how you worded it exactly, but something along the lines of like my community kind of experiencing like a bloom, and like if that has, like, I can't remember how you worded it, but something about the community growing. And that happened kind of dramatically for me, I want to say in the fall of 2021. So as I mentioned earlier in that year, I took like several months of a hiatus just to focus on my mental and personal things. And then when I came back, I was pretty much just trying to get myself used to being perceived by people, and just trying to be consistent with that in a way that felt good to me, and just finding a sense of structure, because by that point we had been a little over a year into the pandemic, and I think that was for myself like a period when I was trying to find some sense of really control in my life, and in a way that felt happy, I guess. Like that's the like Taurus moon in me that, you know, wants to have those pleasurable, stable experiences, but also the like Capricorn in me that's like, no, we need to like get this in line. So, that was, oh God, oh no, why was I talking? Oh, so I had some sense of structure over the summer, and I was pretty much just focusing on like studying and like doing art and stuff. And then we were going to get an update for Animal Crossing. So that was really fun to lead up to. And that was one of the first times, Dukes, where I like really put myself out there. Like one of my friends, Mary Dearest Online. And her friend,
Mary. Hi, Mary.
Yeah, Mary, we love you. And her friend, who I think has been on an extended hiatus, but was Isle of Michelle, really, really amazing Animal Crossing creators. They were putting on a panel with some of their friends and some pretty established creators in that space. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've been pretty much reclusive, like hermit mode for a while. Like, and, you know, I'm just gonna see if I can talk to some folks in the space and just put myself out there. Like I had done community work before, and I was like, I knew that I could take up space in a way that felt good, but I'd never done it in a creative way, like just as like an individual thing, not as a part of like a larger organization. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And it was so fun, dude. It was like I met some amazing people, like someone who's like a really, really dear friend of mine now, Men's Live. I'm sure you've heard me mention her on stream. Yes. But we met through that panel, and it was around that time, like, I don't know, I think it was like lightning struck me where I was like, God, like, this is so nice. Like, I came out of like a really kind of sad and isolated space, and like I kind of like rose like a phoenix from the ashes, but it was more like a hummingbird because I, you know, and and I was just like, oh heck yeah, like, I'm making some friends. I'm like playing Animal Crossing. Like, I feel like inspired because I think I had gotten some editing software, and like I don't know, like something about that period. And I actually been wanting to go back and look at my transits during that time because I've been really into transits. But there's something about that time that just felt so, and I hate to use the word pure because that kind of implies that other parts of my life have been impure, but maybe like just unadulterated, like joy and creativity was like what I felt during that period. And like I, like I said, met some wonderful people. And some of the folks that I had come in contact with, were like larger creators that, they would kind of get a sense of my vibe and be like, oh, this person seems pretty chill. But that was happening a lot more with folks. So I went from like just my regular community members being a part of streams and we're having fun to like that double and tripling over the course of like a month and a half, which it wasn't like I was in any like large viewership necessarily, but you know what that's like when you get like a big raid and it's like this is a lot more energy than I'm used to. So
like even if no one's talking, just knowing that you got like the extra 100 eyes on you, it's like oof.
Yeah. And I think I felt like I had to match my energy to that too, because I think my natural state is being, like kind of how you and I are talking right now. Like I'm very like goofy and chaotic and feral, right? But it's kind of like the volume's turned down a little bit. But yeah, and then I had some like, I'm trying to like TLDR this, but I'm a Tolkien enjoyer, and I
please, the floor is yours. I'm enjoying this. I'm ready to hear it all.
Yeah. And again, this is something I haven't really talked about in like a more public space. So this feels like a very good, like, I feel safe sharing this too, by the way, just like to preface that. But just, I guess I feel comfortable being more vulnerable about that side of content creation, being like a sensitive streamer. It was a lot of new energy, and not all of the energy that was occupying the space was beneficial. Like there were definitely some instances where I could have had better boundaries with folks that had come in, and I internalized a lot of that because there was so much good happening around me. There was so much fun, and like I had started Zelda around that time, and like I had taken my first vacation from work ever, and like I was just focusing on content, and like I don't know, it was a beautiful time for me, like with streaming, because in my personal life I had a lot of very difficult things going on. So it was almost like it was an escape that was not self-sabotaging, which
it wasn't
is like
detrimental,
because like having Neptune in the first house, like we do have our vices when it comes to escapism.
Yes.
And yeah, so that is something that I have learned to really trust my intuition with folks, like, because it's always yelling at me when things feel off, and I really try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But as you grow as a creator, no matter what size you are, like even if you went from one person watching you to 5, like you have to be very mindful of how you feel when you're streaming or posting online, like any way that you do it. Like I really wish that I had been more firm with those boundaries from the get-go, because it almost seeps into this, like, not that you can ever, like, I feel like boundaries are fluid things, like you can put them up and, or remove them or whatever, but I really feel like it is more challenging for sensitive folks to put those boundaries up once there's been like
a connection established.
Exactly.
I totally agree with that, and I think that's what leads to a lot of downfalls of these sensitive streamers is exactly that. Is it starts off with like the chatter that's like, you know, kind of pushing boundaries, but they're not breaking any rules, right?
Yeah.
And you're just getting like a weird vibe, but like it's not, I don't know, a bunch of people come in and out of chat every day, and then they come back the next stream, and it's like, okay, like maybe I'll just drop something in like the mod notes. I don't know. And then eventually, like 2 months, 3 months pass, and they're like a regular in your community. And you're like, oh, this isn't a good fit. like this,
Yeah.
the vibes are just not vibing, you know. So and I think that eventually that just takes over a lot of people's streams, and then they don't want to show up anymore because
Yeah.
they know that these and it's crazy how like 1 to 5 individuals can overtake the joy and the love of like the other 100.
Yeah.
And like how quickly that just snowballs into being just something so in theory, like, or in not in theory, just like it feels unsolvable when really the
Yeah.
reaction is just like, just ban them. It's your space or whatever. Like that's my solution. Maybe a little
it's
tyrannical.
a great solution. Yeah. Not
Like-
not at all.
Like, but I all that to say, like, I get it, and I think that that's been hard for me as a sensitive streamer too. Streaming that definitely taught me my boundaries. I had to learn that real quick, because if not, I just would have let any old Joe Schmo in just to, and especially like, I personally like I do a lot of tarot streaming, but I started as like competitive gaming, so like there's just a bunch of just like immediate judgment coming into streams and stuff. Had to shut that down real quick. But what I wanted to ask you too is, so what are some of the things that make streaming easier for you while sensitive? Is there any I don't know, like rituals you do, or like any like, just what do you do to make streaming as soothing and as empowering as possible in spite of this sensitive spirit, which is of course both a pro and a con in different parts and different stages?
That is such a great question. I feel like I have quite a few, but very simple things, because if I did anything more complicated, I just wouldn't be able to do it, and then I would not be protected, and that's not good, right? But the one thing that I really love that's kind of like a practical magic is there are some indigenous witches in my neighborhood. I regretfully do not remember the name of their collective. I'll send that to you
Okay, sure.
at some point, just like if anyone's curious. But they made it's like I'm pretty sure it's agua de Florida, like Florida water.
Yes.
And it is potent. It is potent. So I usually anoint myself with that before I go live in my space, like, and I try to do that. I did not bring it with me on my trip, so like thankfully I have other things that I can use, but that stuff has helped me so much, because my desk is, I see it kind of as like an altar, because that's where I create, and
Me
I don't always take
too,
the best care of it, like it's like my gamer chair, but that's like one way that I can make sure that the energy is at least neutral as much as possible before I get on. And if nothing else, it just helps to like ground me before I go, because it's so fragrant.
Right, it just-
dudes. It's so good.
That's I could use some real like authentic Florida water. I've smelled my friends. They're indigenous as well, and they brought their Florida water once to. I used to work at a crystal shop, to like an event there, and I was like, okay, this is some real ass Florida water. This is this smells
It's
awesome.
intense. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and man, I kneel to that too. Just like I love you talking about the desk being an altar. I feel the same exact way about my desk. I have many altars. I've realized over the years, like I have an altar by the door where I leave, where I keep my keys, and like you know, that's my safe travels altar. Like without them really being altars, and visualizing the computer desk where we at least I'll speak for myself, but I think we're both like computers. We like technology. We like to be here. We like to play games. We spend a lot of our life here, in my squeaky ass chair, in my like fucked up little like hand me down area. But it's so sacred because this is where all of our best work is done. You know, it's so powerful, and I love that. And I think that something that it is so new, I think, to just like the streaming space is like little, like almost like witchy streaming tips like that, like using Florida water. And something that I've discussed with other people is like some people put sigils on their overlays and put the opacity to 0. And so, like, sometimes, isn't that cool? And they'll, like, make, like, oh, you know, I'm really bad at talking today. I'm just going to make, like, a quick communication sigil and hide it on my overlay. Or, like, you know, I'm really sensitive and I don't want any trolls, so I'm going to do an anti-troll sigil. And I think that's so cool. Tech witchery.
That's so cool. Yeah, we're in the future.
I know.
The Matrix.
The future is now.
Wait, that is so awesome. I'll need to figure that. I haven't done much work with sigils, but I'm sure I could find something that is
me neither. I just use
applicable. Yeah.
I just use a GIF of like an angry Pikachu if I don't want trolls to show up.
That's a sigil, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The GeoCities GIFs gotta be an old school sigil, I think.
Oh yeah.
But I also wanted to talk to you. You touched upon this, and my interest is piqued about how you want to sort of start stepping away from the lore keeper title. And I guess I'll also take this moment to say the reason why I was inspired to bring you on was because of our joined appreciation and love for Zelda. Because I was on your podcast, the Ethereal Femme, and lorekeeper podcast, and we got to talk about the joys of and the magic of Zelda there. And I guess I just wanted to ask, like, first of all, since this is following up my Zelda episode of the podcast, I'd love to talk to you about Tears of the Kingdom for a little bit, but also but also about what's making you, do you just want to be more loose, not really be tied into lore keeping, you know what I mean? Is that just kind of the influence there, stepping away?
So yeah, I'm actually glad that you mentioned that, because I think I maybe misspoke, because I think it's more like integrating more parts of myself outside of stream. So I guess how can I say this? So I'm definitely going to still always be a lore keeper. I think that I am compartmentalizing like where I'm doing that online more. So there will be certain spaces that I'm online where that's like all that I focus on, but in other parts online, like, you know, like on Instagram and other places where I'm sharing more of myself outside of the content that I create, that will be more like generalized. So it's almost like very like Gemini coded, right? Like we have the twins. So there's like the lore keeper twin, and then there's the like everything else twin. I think even when I introduced myself today, I said I was your High Femme comforting friend and lore keeper. I think in this, my question is kind of like a roller coaster ride, or my answer, sorry, not my question, my answer to your question is a roller coaster ride. So in talking about like boundary work, I think when I first started streaming, I thought a lot about like my branding, even before I knew I was going to be doing this, just because I worked in design for so many years. And I pretty much have had your High Femme comforting friend tagline like since I started in 2020. And I think that just given the experiences I've had with, and I really am sure that everyone that's a content creator is tired of hearing this phrase, parasocial. But I think that just given just a few experiences that I've had in the last few years, I think that I feel comfortable just kind of gradually stepping away from calling myself people's like friend in a general sense, even though in my heart, I do feel that, dude. It's like, it's bad. I shouldn't want to be everyone's friend, but I'm of the Aquarian generation. You know what I mean?
get
like,
it
know,
hurts
like,
me too. Like I too have suffered from parasocial relationships, and like I've had to coach people and being like I'd have friends come to me and be like, oh man, like my community like puts me on a pedestal and this and that, and like and I'm like, well, I was like, I guess like the first place to start is like it's hard, and it is really hard because I was like, maybe you should stop telling your viewers you love them. You know what I mean? Like those types of boundaries. And it's so difficult because love comes in many forms, friendships come in many forms, right? But then if you just say the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong set of ears, they're just going to hold on to it and run away with it. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, Nimbley's my friend. Oh my gosh, like Doogsley loves me. Like, and it's like, yeah, but no, like there's nuance, and unfortunately we can't rely upon individuals to understand the nuance. So I totally understand where you're coming from, stepping away from the verbiage of friend, but I also understand the conflict of that because we are bleeding hearts. We want to we connect on soul levels with people when we stream. You know, I think that's just what we do, and we can just like see and peer deeply into chat sometimes and just see a bunch of humans living their own lives looking back at us, and it's like, where does the line begin and end? I think that's God. The question so often. I don't know either. True. That's also true.
It's like it's tough because like I feel like, you know, you said we're bleeding hearts, and it was something I struggled with like identity wise. It's just like, how do I, like, the thing that brings me the fulfillment is the fact that I'm able to connect and have like a positive impact on folks, and the way that I'm able to do that is just by having that kind of universal love and joy and fun with people. And I think that's like a proverbial like Gemini problem, to be honest with you. I think that's why we get a bad rep. It's because when we say love, we mean it in like the purest sense, right? But it, like, depending on the ears, it can be a totally different definition. So I feel like Aquarius is better at doing that in a detached way. I think Gemini is just so like, like, woo, like, you know, and
we're flittering. We are, and here's the thing too, like we love deeply, but then we're also able to sort of disconnect and continue our day, holding on to the love subconsciously, subtly, but it's felt deep in that moment, but we're able to sort of like, you know, share that love so equally. And then other signs, they're like, oh my God, they love me, and they hold on to that.
Right. Like, this is,
like, oh my God.
I'm looking at you, Scorpio placements with
like,
love.
Please. Why does this feel so good? Like,
right. It's just like, I must hold on to this. But I, a part of me like does really love that communal like love and experience. But the reason I even brought that up was like, you were asking me about like how I identify like with like my taglines and like with lore keeping and all of that. And I absolutely want to talk about Tears of the Kingdom because I haven't been able to talk to anyone about it because some of the people that I'm close with haven't finished the dang game. They should play it at their own pace, but also they know that I was going to finish this game 100+ days ago. So that, but I feel very good about this restructuring of self just through language. And because I don't know, I think that it's been one of the things that's been steadfast for me as a creator, and it feels really empowering to be like, no, I can still be who I am on a fundamental level, but just have that boundary where I don't make like an announcement about it necessarily, but just like, you know, here's me as like your lore keeper. Like, I'm still High Femme. I'm just not a source of potential parasocial attachment.
Please.
Please. Like, because it's like, I'm gonna want to feel that connectedness. And this is more for you than for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
and what these individuals also have to understand that are parasocial is that like, if you actually want to be their friend, you would be making the effort to reach out. Or if they want to make the effort, they can, but like, it's like, you gotta like vibe, you know, like
Yeah.
the vibe's got to be there, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just not. Love works in many different ways and is operated on many different levels, and where we live in a society that is just like so much love equals romantic, or love equals like best friend, you know.
Yeah.
It's like no, there's other levels of love. Like I love the like the cute little old lady that I helped pick up her bread today, you know, and
Oh, yeah.
I was like, you're so sweet. Like
Yeah.
my heart goes out to you. Like there's some sort of love that I set that way, you know, but it's not all love is not created the same, and it's definitely hard traversing a space where we interact with so many people that one are desperate for love. I don't think
Yeah.
it sounds like I'm making fun of gamers saying that, but like I just think that's a thing that's happening worldwide, is just like people really treasuring and desiring that type of connection.
Yeah.
And it's like, unfortunately, you're not going to get that with Strimmer, but you'll get a whole bunch of other things,
Right.
like so many cool
The
things.
community and like
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah. And he said something about that really stuck out to me. I just can't remember how you worded it, but it was making me think of just like how I wanted to continue being connected with folks, but just in a way that just felt safe for everyone involved, which is to say, like, I always feel grateful for the interactivity that I have with folks, because like, yeah, like if I had it my way, I could just continue as I was before, and like people would just understand where I'm coming from. But because I can't guarantee that, and I also just want everyone to be able to practice that boundary work even outside of stream. Like I feel like it's a good skill to have, is just like understanding when you are the parasocial person on either end of that, right? Like I feel like, you know, that could be the case with like colleagues and stuff even outside of the internet. Like and I really like I it hasn't been as much just because I've been enjoying just kind of being like goofy on stream lately, which just felt nice. But like just in talking about like boundary setting and like affirming yourself and like, you know, all those like power words that the sensitive BBs need, it just felt good for myself to feel very like grounded in that. Like, no, it's okay for me to do this. It doesn't mean that I'm some big like jerk and like I don't care about the people that have supported me. It's just like I need to retreat. And oh, that's what it was. This was a few minutes ago you mentioned this, but just like, how do I protect myself or like prepare for stream as a sensitive soul? This is something that is not good to do. I want to like preface that, but I just don't really hang out with people outside of stream or their streams. So I spend a lot of time to myself to just like recharge, and not even just in like an introverted sense, but just like in like a mental and spiritual sense, because I feel like I pick up so much.
Yes.
Like,
That's so true. Like
you know,
what post stream, I'm grounding. Like you'll see me like hands and knees in the dirt in the backyard, like just like
sounds
pouring
amazing.
energy into the earth. I interacted with like 50 people today, which is just like in the grand scheme of things, just think of like 50 individuals like coming in, saying hello, or staying the whole time with me. Even if they're awesome, it's just like I picked up a whole lot of energy today. You know, that's not mine. And especially because doing tarot, which is what I do on stream, I'm just like I'm shuffling energy around the whole time, and I'm just like, Gaia, take this. Like I can't carry this, or else I'm gonna burn out or something. So I totally understand that. Like just not wanting to, or maybe more so from what I was about to say, prioritizing your recharge before like jumping back into the fray of just like people, because streaming is very just socially draining in the best ways, but draining nonetheless.
Yeah, like I think that it's really important, like especially for like more sensitive folks, because there's a part of me that thinks that everyone has like a baseline of sensitivity, right?
Yes.
Like I don't think that I'm like, you know, I don't think that I'm special in any sense, or in that sense, but I do know that it, like, in relation to folks that I'm close with that don't need as much recharge time, like, when I don't take that, I just feel awful. And it could be a combination of just picking up on that energy from folks, and also just like, it's a lot to interact with people, and like, I enjoy, the lore of my friends and community members, like, remembering like things that are important to them in their day-to-day lives. Like, that's a lot of energy. And thankfully I'd worked in food service for many years before I started streaming, so I was kind of used to those exchanges and with folks. And that's something that I really enjoy. Like, as my partner says, just like shooting the shit with people. Like, I enjoy that. I genuinely do, especially like being a homebody. Like, that's my
like, let's talk about the weather. Like,
yeah,
let's
no,
talk about
seriously.
like, wow, like, ooh, that perfume, like, what's that smell? It smells great. Like, I'm down to talk about anything, anywhere. I totally agree with that. Like, and streaming's so good for that. Like, just those little moments, but like, it also, when you're streaming upwards of like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, like,
Yeah,
it's like this conversation happens like 20, 30, 50, 100 times. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted.
exactly.
It's
Your
so
brain is just
rewarding.
tired. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we're Gemini, so we love it intrinsically, but it's just like, we're also spoonies. So
Yes.
we have a shutdown point, and it's just like, okay, I gotta give this to the earth. And I want to ask you too, because you live in a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild to think about too. Just because do you, with this career, I feel, with streaming, nature is more important than
Oh yeah.
anything, in my opinion. That's what I always try to push for, like, streamers, like, unironically touching grass, like,
Yes.
and
Become
hugging
grass.
trees. Exactly. Just laying in it, being one with the moss, being one with the dirt. Like, how do you try to get like nature time? I guess I've never lived in a city before, so I'm just so curious about like how do you get that recharge?
Yeah, so I don't. I for Breath of the Wild.
No.
But yeah, no, I
True.
should do it more. I tried. So this is the thing. This was part of my, and when thinking about how I'm going to be as a creator, since I said, I feel that I'm at the start of that hero's journey. I really did slip into some, problematic is not the right word, but I slipped into habits as a creator that were not helping me as a person, but they were helping me as a creator, if that makes sense. So I was, just essentially working myself to the bone. And you already shouldn't do that in general, but especially as like a spoonie, like, how hard it is to come out of that. And I don't feel that I ever got burnout in content. Like, that always felt rewarding, but my physical and like spiritual vessel like got pretty tired, and I know that that's because I just didn't get out into nature. So basically what I've been doing is just physically leaving my place. So I've been traveling a lot more to like upstate New York, and just getting to where I don't have like cell service, which is lovely. And I've just been researching like parks and stuff. Like, I've been playing Pokemon Go because like you have to go out and do that. One thing that I really love, and it's part of my namesake, is doing like yoga and body movement work. That's something that I have had a really hard time getting back into, just because my body's been tired. So as of late, I've been going out in nature. I've been touching grass and just resting. Like, that's what I've been doing, because I think I almost have to like teach my body how to release by just resting first. So it's like, when your Pokemon faints, like, you can't like use a potion on them, like you have to revive them first. Like, I'm being revived right now. Like,
yeah, finding that balance is like so delicate, especially like when you don't like, I'm very fortunate where I'm in the middle of the forest and I can just kind of wander in and disperse my energy and kind of flail around, and I just get a bunch of trees waving back, and
I will say I am really lucky that I live within like 10 or 15 minutes from like a bunch of redwood forests. Where I live, it's like a 15-minute bus ride, and it's just like in the mountains, and it's weird. I'm very lucky that where the city that I live in, it's called Oakland, so it's like the namesake is for oak trees, but it's got redwood forests and like beautiful like mountains and like hilltops and stuff like that. But I just don't leave my apartment normally, so I need to start doing that. So one thing I've been doing while I've been in New York is there's like a few different apps that allow you to essentially play Breath of the Wild in real life. So there's one that's called Seek. It's like an offshoot of iNaturalist, so you can basically have like a compendium for like fauna and flora. So when you got on you would, Doogsley, you would freaking love it.
Because
So
I
you
use
like,
iNaturalist, so this
yeah, so you know it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's like a partner program with them. And you're actually helping scientists with the stuff that you find. So
Real
that's
shit?
something that it's so cool. So I've been using that to just try to motivate myself to go out more, because that's the main thing. It's just like I make excuses. So
I am downloading that immediately.
yeah.
That's awesome. I've been so deep into like plant and mushroom and animal and tree identification lately. That's actually, so that's a mirror to me. That is how I've been getting outside more. Every day I try to find something new in my yard, and there's always something new. And I love it. I just, connecting directly with the nature that surrounds you is just like, so healing, so much more healing. Like it is great to just go outside and like touch a tree and like be like, wow, it's beautiful. But then like understand like, wow, this is like an oak, and
Right.
like that this produces that, and this like this tree must be this much old. Like I don't know. I think that's so fun to just like personally know and learn about the nature that surrounds you. I love that. But yeah, you go.
Especially like when you think about like trees specifically, like I feel, how do I say this? Like I think I learned this recently, and people can fact check me on this, but trees like communicate through their roots, very similar to how it is in Lord of the Rings. But
Yes.
it just made it, I don't know, it's almost like they have their own internet, right? But they only are able to connect like through rooting themselves into the earth. So like that's like something that like motivates me on like a spiritual level to just step away from my screen, because I do feel somewhat codependent on it, because like as a spoonie, like sometimes I just don't have the energy to go out and see my friends or things like that, or just even go out for a cup of coffee. But the more I connect with nature, the more like I almost feel like nature is like technological in a way, and I don't mean that in like a mechanical sense, but just like the way that everything influences each other, like
You
trees
are
and plants
completely
are
right.
the influencers of the world. Like,
They're actually the trendsetters. No, but it's actually so true though, because so this is just such a funny serendipity, because I have been deep in nature books lately.
yeah.
And like that has been my focus of study lately, my Gemini hyper focus academia, and I am specifically deep in mushrooms and mycology, and I just think they're so they're the alchemists of the world. They transform death into life. I don't know. I think that's the coolest thing ever. And they, what you're describing is something that was described in the book that I was just reading. They call it the Wood Wide Web. And
Ooh.
what it is that up until like the 1970s, wow, I'm getting dates out. But up until like that point, we all assumed that every single tree in the forest and every single plant was in competition with each other. But then they were like, hold up, what are these tiny microscopic things coming off of the trees? And it turns out that's mycelium, and which is just like giant highways of mushrooms, like, or fungi, I guess, underneath the earth, underneath the soil, that spans for miles and miles and miles, and it connects huge amounts of trees and nature together. So there's like huge communities of trees that are constantly in communication with each other, and they make decisions like, oh, tree A looks sick, tree B, you send some of your energy to tree A. Like, it's truly amazing stuff that's happening beneath our feet. And reading that, it's like, it's so, it of course, like, Western science first assumed that everyone was in competition. And then it turns out beneath us all was actually this, everything's working together to help everything and everyone survive. And it gives me hope, I think, that us humans can learn from this mushroom magic that's just like hiding underneath us at all times. And that's why, like, and it's so interesting what you mentioned, like how, you know, there's like a network in front of us online, and then there's also this network outside between all of these trees and bushes and flowers. And I'm like constantly humbled.
What's the name of the book? I have to know.
Good question. It is Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. Do you know Cosmo Sheldrake?
I don't.
Okay, I was wondering, because we also have similar taste in music. That's a musician that I like, but Cosmo and Merlin Sheldrake are siblings, so I thought I'd make that connection.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, I'll definitely have to check their music out, because you know I love music.
Yes.
That Moon Trine Neptune in my chart, I'm like, that is like how I love connecting with people through music. But yeah, no, I really feel like what we talked about earlier was just like how looking at the full moon made me feel grounded, even though it's like this thing that's way, way, way far away. Like just thinking about what you just said with like trees and their interconnectivity and community, like it's like we really have all the answers already. We just have to
tap in.
And that can be as literal or figurative as people want to take it. For me, it's been a little bit of both. It's like I've needed to like tap in with folks in my community. So that's why I was so happy when you wanted to chat, because I do tend to become a little bit of a recluse when I'm tired. And that's fine for a point, but like, you know, we can't just shut ourselves off. Even I feel like on a surface level, people usually can't tell. And sometimes I'm not even doing it because my head is in a weird space. It's just I'm a little bit of a loner. I love community and I genuinely love people, but I also just I'm like a house cat. I'm gonna go over here. I don't want pets right now. Like, just
me too.
You know,
I totally relate to that. Yeah, like I'm an only child, so like I've always taken on this like lone wolf thing.
Yeah,
it's just like all I've known, and not like in a derogatory way. It's just like I'm perfectly happy being by myself, and sometimes I'm by myself a little too long.
And we're just like Link.
My God, you're right.
Yeah.
That is the perfect segue into what I want to talk with you next about, actually, because I want to. Where should I even begin with this? I want to talk to you about Tears of the Kingdom. That's still in my brain. But I want to talk to you about you starting Breath of the Wild, and not only starting there, but then going backwards through The Legend of Zelda's like games, and going to Ocarina of Time and doing Twilight Princess. And I grew up on Zelda, so like I'm partially curious about like just what that's been like going backwards through the games, just like as a gamer POV, but also just your adventure with Zelda in general, what it's taught you, and like what's so special about it to you. Once again, I just threw 60 different things at you.
It's
so
okay.
Go crazy.
Like it I think it really just helps me to. I think it's almost like you're giving me not a transcript. What is that called? It's like an overview.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's like a term for it in writing, but I can't think of it right now.
A summary?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like how to. So I won't do the chronological side of it, because I feel like that's a little less interesting. I think that's how I've historically talked about my experience with Zelda, and I think because I'm talking to you, I kind of want to just talk about it in a more like philosophical sense. And I'll try to be as coherent as possible. Like, I don't want to sound like a okay. I should not worry about that. But so I will. This will be the one bit of chronological like lore that I'll give, is that I didn't really grow up with Zelda games, so I'm on like the other end of that spectrum. However, I did play like maybe about an hour of Ocarina growing up, just when I would go to my cousin's house because he had it. I didn't really play any of the story. I just held the controller because I think I was like 3 or 4. I can't remember exactly. And I played one of the handheld like Game Boy Zelda games. I think that might have been Zelda 2. I can't remember exactly which one he had. And then so that would have been in the 90s, and then we'd like time skip to 2020. So this would have been March of 2020, like right before the lockdown. I rented Shadow of the Colossus and Breath of the Wild for my public library. And
that's another excellent game.
Oh, it's so good. It's like one of my favorite games, and I'll talk about why once we get into the second part of this story. I played Breath of the Wild for like, I don't know, I think I got out of the chamber, and then I dropped down to where the stone talus is, because I had played, Shadow of the Colossus fairly recently, and I was like, clearly this is where I'm supposed to go, not to the right, because for some reason I didn't see the path on the right. I just was like, oh, I have stamina, I can climb on things, I should just jump down. I got wrecked, because it's not like Shadow of the Colossus where you can like solve a puzzle essentially to defeat the boss. You just have to like
be strong, fast.
Yeah. Which like felt very. I was like, oh, this is kind of like Dark Souls, except it's not. In this game freaking stinks, and it's horrible. It's horrible. And I like took it back to the library, and I was like,
wait, that's awesome.
I'm never playing this again. And like I remember when I started streaming. Yeah, I've never talked about this on stream. I feel like I would just get blocked by everyone that I know.
Funny.
Yeah, it's like, this game sucks. And I remember when I started streaming, all my friends, they're like wonderful, like lifelong Nintendo enjoyers, and I just would always like avoid when they would ask me like, oh, are you ever gonna play Breath of the Wild? You would love it. And I'd be like, yeah, I heard that game's really good. In the back of my mind, I'm just remembering the stone talus just wrecking me. Because I just had a stick, because I think that's like all you can find in that when you first leave.
You're like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're trying to just make this harder than Dark Souls for no reason, not realizing that, and I'll get to that. But
Dark Souls is a masterpiece. They're trying to copy it.
Yeah, like me just being stereotypical from software gross. And then I mean, I'm sure you heard me tell this story, but I ended up doing like a charity stream for like the Christmas season, and I was like, you know what? Everyone keeps asking me to play Breath of the Wild. It's on sale at Target. I can just make that be an incentive, because I try to find like economical incentives, because I don't, especially then, it was not making very much money. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Worst case scenario, I'll just have a new game to play. And, I by that point, I was kind of tired of playing Animal Crossing. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Why not? I'll just play this while I'm on my vacation. And then I fell in love with the game. Not necessarily the story right away, because I feel that the story, especially initially, and especially if you weren't familiar with the series, it really favors you just kind of exploring and just getting lost in the terrain and music, and that I'll never forget, like, because I say I never forget. I'll never forget the second time officially that I had stepped out of the Great Plateau, because the first time I blocked it out of my memory, because I was just like, what's this game? But when you like step out and there's like that whole like overview, and I was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in a game. And then I just had my chaotic playthrough after that, where I chased a barrel like down a hill and drowned trying to get it for some reason. I was just, I don't know. It was just
You're
chaos.
immersed.
Exactly. I was fully immersed and like fully dedicated to that barrel. And yeah, I think it was just like a really fun, silly time for me with Breath of the Wild. And it was when I was really starting to feel confident as a creator because I was like putting out a lot of clips from my stream and I was being loud and silly. You know?
This is where I think you, in my POV as just someone who has observed you, this is about the time that I felt your viewer counts started going up, and I would visit your stream and I just felt like you were just like more confident and present, and like you were just like really in this healthy flow with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it's still one of my all-time favorite games, and I know it's far from a lot of people's favorite Zelda game, but I'll talk about that a little bit after I give like the general overview to the question you were asking me about my experience with the series overall. But it definitely is something that I think is up there with Ocarina that just really impacted me on a personal level. Yeah. And I think it's just because of what I had going on in my personal life too, where Breath of the Wild really just kind of awakened this sense of adventure in me where things... my job at the time was incredibly draining, and a project that I was working on at the time pretty much made me bedbound. I didn't really talk about that on stream, but it was so stressful on me, like mentally and physically, that I just couldn't leave my place. So streaming, and especially Breath of the Wild, gave me that sense of like adventure and like, you know, boundlessness that I didn't have access to. And then, yeah, it was just fun being like silly. And I was like, oh, so I can be like kind of goofy and like making weird noises, and it's not going to be off-putting to folks. Because there was a part of me that felt like I almost had to restrict that. And that's on having Saturn in your third house.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is that why you say sorry so much?
Well, yes, but I also dated someone from the Midwest for many years. So it's like a part of that too. That's in NIMBLEY lore.
Cultural lore, I see.
Yeah. Some linguistics and stuff. But yeah, and then I was getting close with one of like someone that's very near and dear to me who really loves the Zelda series. And when I got to the point where I had gotten comfortable with exploring Breath of the Wild, and then I was like, oh, right, there's a story happening here. Like I should probably do the Divine Beast quests and like stuff like that. Because I was just like Doogs within like 2 weeks of me playing, I was like parrying Guardians with a pot lid, and I just felt unstoppable and like, you know, sorry. You can edit this out. My partner just walked in the room and startled me. And I can't hear. He just like,
the jump scare.
He's like apologizing. I almost like flipped backwards. It's fine.
We almost lost you.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's a thing too. Like Breath of the Wild was fun because I'm easily startled. But and he's actually the one. I guess I'll give some context. Like I don't know how you will edit this. Like maybe
I'll figure it out.
I'll rephrase this. Like someone that's very near and dear to me, Tiggs or Tiggity. Like he is a lifelong lover of Zelda, and he had been watching a lot of my Breath of the Wild streams at the time because that was one of his favorite games. And as I was completing the different main story quest points and doing some side questing just to kind of understand what was going on, and realizing that the story was really rich, like more rich than I had seen, you know, just in playing it just for the fun of the exploration. Like he had, I think it was when I was in Zorazomi, which is like one of my favorite areas in the game. Throughout the series, like it's always been just, you know, blue's my favorite color. It's like
so
watery
beautiful there. I know. The Zoras are my favorite. I love them.
They're such chilly little guys. I'm actually wanting to play through the Oracle series because we get some Zora lore in one of the. Anyway, I remember I was looking at one of the Divine Beasts, and I was like, I feel like this creature is named after a character that I haven't met. And he was just like, eyes emoji, like, yeah, they're in an older Zelda game. And I was like, oh, which one? And then that's what really got me interested in like, wait a minute. So there's like all this little secret stuff that's from other games. Because I saw some of my friends that have, you know, like Mary and my friend Amber, who like really, really love Breath of the Wild, especially. Having all the different DLC masks and stuff on. And I didn't know what that stuff was because I hadn't played any other games. And they were like, yeah, and like this stuff is also from other games. You should like check those out. And I was like, oh my God, that is so cool that they brought all this stuff in. And like my FromSoft brain, which loves like environmental storytelling and like little whispers, like I was like, holy shit.
That is
like,
what Zelda does best. You know, those
Yeah.
little subtle pockets of storytelling. It's so good.
It's so good and like very foundational to, I feel like, gaming in general. And I'll get to that.
Yes.
Like I'll transition over to like the very brief, like I'll try to keep it very brief, like playthrough. So I of course naturally went to Ocarina of Time. Thankfully I had the subscription. I think I got it for another reason, but I have this very cursed clip of me. I think it had to have been Halloween in 2021. I was like doing an Animal Crossing event, and one of my friends was asking me if I would ever play a Zelda game, and this was like right or before I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, like I guess the subscription is only like $50. Like I just don't really see myself playing Zelda games, and like I just think about that like daily. I'm just like, yeah, it's just little did I know. But yeah, I went to Ocarina, and I did have a fun time with it up to a point. Like the mechanics were a little rough for me, but it's
gosh. It is very outdated. I don't blame you.
Yeah, but only because of, I feel like if I had played it on original hardware, I would have had a better time. But I ended up
that's
loving it.
true.
Like once I got like the right controller, like shout out to one of my community members that gifted me the controller. And I still think that even though aesthetically, I think Twilight Princess is my favorite, and and overall Breath of the Wild is my favorite for more personal reasons. It's got less to do with like the lore. I think Ocarina for me has, and I've yet to play through Majora's Mask, as you know, properly, so that might change, but I think Ocarina just really speaks to the things that I love about not just fantasy, but storytelling, where it's not overly complicated. It's really just almost like a children's fairy tale in a way, and it's more hopeful because I feel like, and you know this just from like studying the Fae, a lot of like the origins of fairy tales that we see, especially in like more popular media like Disney, like they were really dark and messed up and had horrible, tragic endings. And like, even though Ocarina is, and Zelda games in general tend to have like very somber themes around like grief and loss, and there's also that sense of hope and like overcoming challenges, even if you're like just a young person or someone who's not seen as, you know, up to your full potential. And I think Ocarina, for many reasons, like just going through like childhood and adulthood, and like just like the pacing of it, like, and just it. I just played the base game. I didn't do any of the side quests. I'm sure when I go back and do it, I'll feel this even more. But I think that I hadn't had a game in a long time just make me feel the way that I did when I played Ocarina. Like I think back to like seeing Zelda for the first time, and just like and just seeing Hyrule get destroyed. And then well, the thing that really hit me when I first played it was I remembered something bad happens to Deku, but I couldn't remember when. Like I knew that he died, but I couldn't remember when. And I'll never forget, like when I first started, I was like, oh, like Deku, oh my God, I'm so happy to see him. This is like one of my favorite characters in the game. And like, we don't, you know, we just get a little hint of him like in Breath of the Wild, but I remember loving him as a kid because that was like the one part of the level that I did play a lot was in the Kokiri village. And like, I just, you know, it's very like Fae core, like all the little Kokiri children. And I think by the time I was lore keeping and like looking into the story and remembering like God, this is really sad from the jump. Like Link is an orphan essentially, like, and he's in this like forest and nobody likes him, and his only friend really is like this tree. And I was like, oh gosh, I sure hope like we get to see him. And then he just dies, and I remember just feeling devastated. But to like wrap that up was like finishing Ocarina and like seeing baby Deku like just sprouting up, like that broke me, like dudes, like that, like I don't know what it was. Like, I mean, the ending of Ocarina, like when you defeat Ganon and like that whole sequence is like, that is like, yeah, the controls horrible, awful, but like the story is just so damn good, and like it just sticks out to me. Yeah,
it's so Ghibli coded, where like so much is spoken without being spoken. The subtle storytelling that is just so thick in Zelda is the best part. In the last episode I did for the Oddcast, I did an astrological deep dive on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Ooh.
And I think you would really enjoy listening to it, especially after this, as we conversate. I feel like you're going to agree with some of my assessments. But I think one of the big things I took away from it was, in my studies, I watched a talk done by the art director and director of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And they talked a lot about how the most important thing for Zelda was like the vibes. It's not the gameplay, it's not the storytelling, it's the vibes. It's about what you are picking up, the feeling of adventure, the feeling of being on a journey. That is what they deemed most important in the video game creation. And a part of Breath of the Wild's like call to action was like, we're trying to go back to basics, ironically, but while changing some things up, so you can like climb on walls and stuff. But like, we want to go back to that same feeling that Zelda evoked, because like, I think that Twilight Princess was like sort of this last game in this golden era of Zelda, because then we started getting like, oh, I might get people mad by saying that, because then we got like games like Skyward Sword, and I was like, like this is fun, but like I don't know, I'm something's missing. And then like they brought that back hardcore with Breath of the Wild. In my opinion, I thought that it was such an ambient and visceral gaming experience, exactly like you said with the plateau, like walking out of the Shrine of Resurrection and greeting that like sunrise. There was like, like 3 minutes into the game and I'm like bawling.
Right.
And I'm like, what's happening to me? Like I haven't even like, I've all I've done is press forward and like pressed A a few times, and I'm moved. I'm bespoked watching this. And that's, I think, another term too. I think that Zelda is so good to just like watch and watch everything unfold. It's so tender, so subtle. And like and it's funny too, because like I think that the stories are good, but I also think that they aren't the weight that carries the games on its back. It's a very classic, as you say, fairy tale in most of the Zelda games, where it's good versus evil, hero's journey.
Exactly.
And with a lot of magic in between, and a lot of shoulders brushing against different forces, against different mundane individuals living mundane lives. I don't know. Zelda's magic. And I'm glad that you were able to capture that. And I think that's something that's really special about the way that you've gone through these Zelda games, is that these are the feelings and the emotions and everything that you went through is immortalized in video form on your stream. And I think that's very special.
I'm really glad that you said that, because like as you were talking about how Zelda is like fun to watch how things unfold and like go through those different interpersonal exchanges and like see how complex all those relationships are. I'm paraphrasing, but a part of me had doubted if that would be the case, because a part of me has always wondered what it's like for people on the other end that play it completely to themselves. Like, I was so envious of when you were talking about playing Tears of the Kingdom, just like, shutting yourself off from the world, because I loved being, first of all, I wouldn't have been able to finish any of those games if I played it on my own time, because my ADHD is so bad that I need to do it in a communal sense. But there's a part of me that I'm really glad that I saved a lot of the side quests and stuff for off stream, so now I can just go back to those whenever I want. But there was a part of me that was like, am I robbing people of like that experience of like how amazing these games are by streaming it? And like I 100% enjoyed what I did with it. But yeah, it's nice to hear that that is like a positive thing for folks, because I don't know. I get in my head about this stuff. Like, even if I'm enjoying it, I'm like, yeah, but is this like, should I be doing this? I guess.
I mean, here's what I think, because like with Zelda, no one's going to tune into a Zelda stream to watch like Link swing his sword.
True.
People want to tune in and watch the subtle storytelling unfold. You know, it's very impressive to watch cool parries and you rock a shrine, but I think it's even cooler watching, especially in games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that aren't on rails. It's very magical, and Ocarina of Time too. I could watch that story over and over and over again.
So beautiful.
I love it. But like one of my favorite parts of watching Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom playthroughs is, where are they gonna go next? You know, why that way? Why, when clearly, let's say for Breath of the Wild's sake, they're very clearly kind of gently nudging you to Kakariko at the beginning, but it's like, it's so funny to see some of the streamers, they notice it, they're like, fuck that, I'm going the exact opposite direction. Like, see me in Gerudo. Like, it's like, okay, like, I love it though. Like, and I think that's also a part of the magic of watching and being a part of the audience of a Zelda game, is just like, wow, like, where this is such a storytelling of the soul, because I think that even just the knee-jerk reaction of like, I'm not listening to you, game. Like, it's like, okay, Sagittarius, like, just go wherever you want. Like, like, it's like, okay, I just gotta read on you, but like, affectionate. It's funny. Like, I think that, oh my gosh, my chair. I think that these games are storytell to us, and then it story tells us to us. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. Because, and okay, I'm still learning like the development team for Zelda, because so I'm not as well versed on the real life lore of Zelda yet, because I've mostly been immersed in the end game. But my understanding is that there are many different parts of like the upper hive brain of the Zelda development team that are interested in different aspects of the game. So we have like Miyamoto-san, who's kind of like mad scientist, just like, I just want to see what we can do with the game and just make it fun, and like bring all this ingenuity into gaming. And then we have Aonuma-san, who like feels the same way, but he's a little bit more focused on, at least from the surface level research that I've done on them, the two of them specifically, more focused just on like creating that universe and kind of taking Miyamoto's wacky ideas and making them real.
Breathing life into them. I agree with
exactly. And then there are other oh god, this is so bad. I should remember the gentleman that's rest in peace, that the Satori are.
Iwata-san.
Yeah, Iwata-san. I feel like, in a way, was kind of, and there's nothing against Aonuma-san or Miyamoto-san, but almost like the soul in a way for Zelda. So I feel like they really honored that.
Well, isn't like an Easter egg that like on. Oh no, I think it's on the Switch in particular. If you put in a certain code, like the NES game for golf pops up, and that was like one of the first games Iwata worked on.
Oh,
and
really?
So like Iwata's like baked into the Switch, and baked into like everything that Nintendo touches forever. I think that's so cool. And for those who are listening who don't know anything about Iwata-san, please look into him. He is a video game magician and is sorely missed in the video game world. He brought brilliant ideas and is part of the reason that Earthbound exists, and or at least over here in the West. Like, amazing human being and amazing creator of worlds and programmer, genius, maybe I would say. And like, yeah, all these amazing minds that have come together and created the Zelda series, and like everything, it has been intricately chosen for these games. And once again, since it's so fresh in my mind, especially Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, talking about things like being directly inspired by like chemistry and physics. It's like, you guys are so smart. like that's so cool.
The science behind these games is so cool, Doogsley, especially like going through the compendium, like, and like it's all in there. It's all in there. Like, it's so cool just seeing the different plant life as it appears. Like, it tells a story of its own in that way. Like, and I know that we haven't had a game yet where you can play as Zelda, but I think that this is something I haven't talked about on stream either. But if people want to have that experience of like playing as Zelda, work on your compendium, because that's like her life's blood. It's like, you know, doing that research, and like that's what's brought me a lot of joy and fulfillment, and like
that
looking into like the plants and animals that were inspired by the game. Like, one little fun Easter egg in Tears of the Kingdom when you're in Kakariko Village. Oh my god, what is the name of that flower? I'm looking this up real quick.
Is it the fuck?
It's called oh gosh, hold on. I have a photo of it. Oh, this is the Japanese. A spider lily. So there's a spider lily, a red spider lily, which I believe is said to be some sort of like connection to hell or earth. There's a dried spider lily in one of the merchant shops in Kakariko Village near one of the chasms, which I thought was so cool. I haven't had a chance to go and see if there's a spider lily that's alive in Breath of the Wild yet, but I just thought that would be really kind of a cool, like the flower is dead, like, because hell is now on earth. Like, that's like kind of how it's meant to symbolize a cycle of rebirth, death and rebirth. So yeah, there's like little things like that where, like, to most people, they would just see a dried flower. But if you look at what kind of flower that is, and like, there's so much Japanese culture embedded into Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like, you really can go as deep as you want into the storytelling with those two games in particular. And that's what I appreciate about them so much. So I'm really excited to listen to your Oddcast episode on those two. And like, I didn't want to take over too much, because I'm sure that you had a bunch of questions and like talking points for those games. So that was just like something that I thought about recently.
Oh no, that's so cool. I did not ever catch that. And that's the thing with these games. Like, everything is so intricately placed. Everything is so woven into, like, there's a reason why these games were delayed, like, for years. Both of them, you know, like, they wanted to create all these beautiful finishing touches on this world that is, and I mean, just in general, the world of Hyrule is such and it just created such a, like, I think about like the world and like the Kokiri and like all the inhabitants of Hyrule, and it's like just such a thoughtfully driven world. But what I want to know with you is with Tears of the Kingdom, first of all, what did you think, especially like maybe in comparison to Breath of the Wild, or what was your thoughts?
So my thoughts overall, or just
I know that was an open-ended. I don't know. Like, so if I'm remembering correctly, you played Breath of the Wild, you jumped to Ocarina of Time, you played Twilight Princess, and then you did Tears of the Kingdom?
Yes.
So that's
exactly.
Just that flow, I'm amazed by, and like, I guess maybe jumping from Breath of the Wild into Tears of the Kingdom, because it follows up the story about 5 years later, and then you're immersed in something entirely new, but just the same as it ever was. And like, did you have fun? Did you like it?
I did.
All those things in mind, I guess.
So I was just talking about this with someone recently, where like there's a small part of me that wishes that I would have not finished Twilight Princess right before playing Tears of the Kingdom. And it's only because I got so used to the combat in Twilight Princess that I was more combat brain by the time I got to Tears of the Kingdom initially. That wore off like very quickly, but I think that I was more focused on like fighting stuff right away. And you know, like even Breath of the Wild is like totally different from Twilight Princess's combat, as far as like the arts and stuff like that. But I think that I really am grateful that I had finished Breath of the Wild, because I think the way that I interpreted it is like, I know there was a lot of criticism about the Tears of the Kingdom and the story in general, but that's to be said of like every Zelda game. But I think that the disjointedness that is felt between different parts of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is 100% intentional. And I really do feel like it was meant to be disorienting for people that were familiar with Breath of the Wild, because for me, like it had me on pins and needles for the longest time, because I just thought like, am I in the right dimension? Like, I know that this is like in the future, but so much of this feels like I'm like in some weird purgatory also. And that still hasn't been totally made clear to me even after finishing the game. It's not really something that I want answered directly, and I don't think that we would get that answer anyway, because it's Zelda and that's what I love about the series. But there's almost a part of me that, because there's so much illusion in Tears of the Kingdom and various like points of the game, that like I never felt calm or like at ease, which was such a cool feeling, because that's what I loved about Breath of the Wild, is that there were a lot of auditory cues, like, you know, example being like the Guardian, you know, sounds like where I would, you know, I would be like chilling, and then I would hear that sound, and then I'd be like, okay, it's danger time. But I felt like in Tears of the Kingdom, like I never really relaxed, like especially when you're like, you know, for example, like the Lost Woods, or like, you know, the Korok Forest as it's called, like that is scary to get to in Breath of the Wild, but once you're there, you're fine. I never felt like that in Tears, like even after working through that part of the story, like there was just always like this sense of danger and like looming like evil, which like I really appreciated but was not expecting in a Zelda game, because even though like the previous games had different points where they felt like ominous and like there was like evil afoot, like I feel like Tears of the Kingdom really, like I was like within the first few minutes of the game, I was like, oh, okay, so they're giving us Dark Souls Breath of the Wild, like this, they're really doing it. Like I love this, I'm eating this up. But then there was this other part of me that was like, wait, actually, I want to go back. Yeah, you know, like exactly, because Breath of the Wild is like a game that I will always find very comforting, because it's one of my favorite games, and it feels like and even in the title, it's Breath of the Wild. It's like very and then like Tears of the Kingdom, like it's even got so many like plosives, like, you know, like it's just like there's like that weight, and I enjoyed it. It's still like 10 out of 10 game for me, but I felt very different feelings like going through it. And
I agree with that. Hi, editing Doogsley here. I just wanted to say that we're going to be starting to talk a little bit more about Tears of the Kingdom in this section, and surprisingly, we kept it pretty spoiler-free, except we do talk about an enemy that pops up in the game that may or... It's a spoiler. It is a spoiler, but if you don't want to hear anything about that and anything about our feelings about that, you should probably skip ahead 5 minutes, and then that conversation will be over. But it's not too bad of a spoiler, but a spoiler nonetheless. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Okay, back to the interview. Thank you. I think that a lot of the instances where I was struck with awe in Breath of the Wild, such as the moments where I first ran across a Hinox, or like where it's a huge, terrifying monster, but I was mostly just like, I felt like Steve Irwin, like I'm just like, oh my god, like let me look at this big creature. This is amazing. Yeah, crikey. Yeah, exactly. and then I go into Tears of the Kingdom, and by the way, I will preface this part with like a spoiler. So us this talk. So feel free to speak freely.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, but just like how there's so many moments that start with Breath of the Wild, I'll never forget when, something I'll never forget in Tears of the Kingdom is the first time those fucking hands came out of the ground.
Dude, that made me not want to play the game. And unfortunately, dudes, literally, I found, okay, so this is how messed up it was and like how I knew I was never going to know a moment of peace in that game. Dudes, I left Lookout Landing. You know how there's that door that leads towards the chasm you're supposed to go to for Robbie? There's a little area of like dilapidated buildings. It can't be more than like maybe 100 yards away from the exit. Dukes, I went there just like, that's weird, there's like nothing here. Then I hear the music and I'm like, oh, that's strange. I was like, oh, what's going on with my screen? Like, is this a blood moon? And then the hands, and like you can't outrun them, because I had just dropped from the Sky Islands. I had no stamina. I didn't have a glider. I had nothing, and I was just like, oh, this is scary. I have no weapons. And I will never forget that moment, because I was like, this game is seriously fucked up. Like, oh my god. Because like, and this is coming from like a almost 10-year FromSoft veteran. Okay, like I have never felt that sense of fear in maybe the first time I played Resident Evil 2, but that was decades ago, and it was amazing. But I was like, that's not why I play Zelda games. I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah,
I was sitting over here. Oh my god, and like, it was very similar. I was like, what? Is this a blood moon? I'm like, that's weird. It's midday. And then like, I just turn my camera at the right angle and I see this conglomerate of hands rushing towards me, and I scream and I throw my controller.
Oh,
and
no.
My partner's next to me. And so the way that we played, because we're like, okay, we both have to play Tears of the Kingdom at the same time. So he was playing on his TV, like across the room. And I'm over here. He's like, what just happened? I'm like, nothing. Just keep playing. Like, I don't want to spoil this for you. Like, I am not spoiling this for you. I was like, focus on what you're doing. I'm going to cope for a little bit and think about what on earth I'm meant to do about this situation.
And like, nobody knows anything about it. Like, you can learn about the gloom hands like in some NPC interactions, like if you do the chasm quest, but it's like it's disturbing. And I think even after playing, and I think because it's okay, so this is my hot take. I've heard some Nintendo gamers say that they want like 4K Zelda game and the Unreal Engine. I'm like, no, I don't want that. We don't need that. And I also selfishly don't want anything like the fucking Gloom Hands in 4K. They're terrifying enough in this beautiful cell shaded, like painted world that we're in. I don't want to actually have fear in my very hyperactive imagination about those things.
Yeah, I don't need waking nightmares before my very eyes.
You know what I mean?
Like, no, and not to mention, like, God. No, we really don't need that. But like, once again, the charm of Zelda is exactly what it is, which is this charming cell shaded like world. And I think
it's like a fairy tale.
It is, and I've seen a lot of complaints about like how blurry the game is, which is valid, I think, to a certain point. I think that at this point we're nearing the end of the Switch's lifespan. Oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna miss the Switch.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm sure Switch U will be great. But I think that like the exactly what you said, the dreaminess of the art in and of itself, how it's sort of like everything's a little rounded and has like a glow effect on it. Like, it's like, I
Mhm.
don't know, it's a part of the game's magic. We don't need anatomically correct skin. Like, you get to see the wrinkles of the
The
skin, blue
pores
hands, the
and
pores.
yeah. And I think too, to your point, like I'm really glad that you said like that it's like almost like dreamy. Like I feel like it really, I don't know, I'm sure you can relate to this, but I love like animation and cartoons, and like I feel like it's able to really convey stories in a way that you just can't get with realism. Like I feel like that's why I love like all of, you know, the indie artsy like highbrow stuff all the way to like Adventure Time. Like it just,
Yes.
I feel like if it were done with a more realistic aesthetic, if you will, it just would take me out of it. And maybe that's just because I'm autistic and I read too much into body language and stuff when it's a person, but when it's a cartoon or animation, like I feel like I can connect with it more. But I just feel
Me
like
too.
it's just it is a part of that like Nintendo charm. It's like what sets them apart and why Zelda has endured for what 30 plus years now, going on 40. Like
Going. There's no end in sight for Zelda, and I think it's exactly that too. It's a part of the presence it's created creatively. Like,
yeah.
you can immediately tell when something's a Zelda game, even
Yeah.
through all of its iterations and the evolution of consoles. Like, to give it's never tried to be realistic. It's Hyrule.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, and the fact that people expect that, first of all, from a Nintendo game is wild to me. But second of
It's
all,
like read the room.
like, when has Nintendo ever given us anything like that? And when also have we ever asked Nintendo for like the realistic Mario game? Like,
Yeah.
never. give Zelda the same credit, because Zelda, people get confused because it is like this high fantasy setting, and I think that
Yeah.
especially like with Twilight Princess, because like I remember at the time Wind Waker came out before Twilight Princess, and people were furious. They were like, this is not our Link.
And it's so weird to me, Dukes, because I feel like of all the Zelda, like bordering on vintage now games that I've played, that looks the best. Say for the Game Boy Advance games, like that has like graphically looks so amazing. And I feel like Breath of the Wild really did a nice marriage of the style of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, where we got
Agreed.
that cell shading, but still that it's very like anime high fantasy. But Wind Waker like wouldn't make sense in any other art style than it was. And that like for me, like again, I'm newer to this whole community still, in a sense. Like it's only been a little over a year for me, if you can believe that. But it just felt to me like A Link to the Past art style. It was just 3D or 2.5D. I don't know all the, but like it just reminded me of that like sense of like childlike wonder and exploration. And like I don't think a pirate like nautical themed Zelda game would have looked good in any other art style personally, because
Gosh, yeah.
you know, and it reminded me, and my art history for Japanese culture is not very good. Like it's not, I shouldn't say very good. It's not as well versed as maybe someone who knows more, but it just reminded me a lot of the painted stories that I would see from like Japanese folklore and other like East Asian cultures. So in a way, it was just like that kind of simplified and almost like historical art style. But I'm using that term very loosely. But it just it wasn't meant. It was meant to be like you were watching a story that had already occurred. Is
I
like
mean,
how I felt.
And I think that just rings true with most Zeldas. I think a lot of Zeldas have tons of just like Japanese underbelly to it, where you can just tell it hails from Japan. From, I mean, even just like the very on the nose. I forget what era Breath of the Wild like was inspired by, but I'm sure you've looked into it if you have. Like the pottery. Was
The
like,
Jomon people. Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly
Yeah.
that. Yep. Like so, and a big part I think of The Legend of Zelda is exactly that, the legend of Zelda. And I think with every game, the beginning of the game shows like this slideshow like old imagery, of like hieroglyphics, of like paintings of a time long past, of a hero in green, and I think that it Zelda is just like a modern fairy tale, ultimately, just constantly retelling the same story over and over, but with new hats, new faces, new situations, and following very lonely Link and very Scorpio Link,
Yeah.
on his very Scorpio journey. And I kneel so much to the way that they've told the stories, and like the mediums of which that they're telling the stories. And I'm glad that you have been a part of the storytelling of The Legend of Zelda with your lore keeping, and simply, like I said, just cataloging your journey through Zelda in and of itself. Because I think most of all, one of the things that the creators of Zelda wanted to drive home was everyone can be Link. They made Link intentionally androgynous, and ageless, I suppose, where you see Toon little kid Link, but then you see also very mature older Link, and then we get like Twilight or a Breath of the Wild Link, which is like somewhere in the middle, like coming of age Link, you know. And I think that as a viewer of yours and someone who's been watching you for a while, I think that having sort of this breakout game for you and your channel and what you put out there be Zelda, I think is very poetic, sort of stepping into this role of storyteller in a game that is simply about telling the story, the hero's journey, you know. And I guess that leads me to ask you, what is your next lore keeping journey?
Oh God. Sorry, I was just like basking in the light of everything that you were saying. I love the way that you speak about games and just in general. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like it's really like, I hate to just use this term just so like plainly, but it's beautiful. Like, and I'm really happy that you've started a podcast, because like I feel like you'll be able to like showcase that in a way that I know you are always able to do this on stream, but I feel that you're really like in your element doing this. So I really do feel honored that you have me here as your guest. So
that's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, the Pika emote where he's like sitting there with his like Kita eyes. That's like me listening to you talk about Zelda right now. Just like, I forgot what you asked me just now, because I'm like, wow. But I think you're asking me about lore keeping and
what's your next journey?
So that's kind of like a cliffhanger for me because of the old ADHD. Because well, one, the more before I got on this call, I had a sure answer, which was I'm focusing on trying to bring about a convergence of all the fantasy games that I've enjoyed and give like a NIMBLEY lore, like me as a gamer and a creator, and like what lore keeping is, and like kind of almost doing it like a university course. Like I think that's like teaching.
That would be wonderful.
I guess is like the best way. Exactly. Yeah. Like NIMBLEY University, something like that, but just like not as like something that sounds a little bit more magical. Like I would be happy with that. Like I'm sure it will be like very charming, but I'm still workshopping that because there's just too many things that I love, you know?
Yes. You'll come up with something brilliant. I know you will.
Thank you. But I really feel very strongly about a lot of things. Like that's just on having a Mars and Aries. I'm like, you know what? I have this belief and I'm going to stand up for it. And like, it's not even from a valued sense, but just more like I have an opinion and I want to share it. And like streaming is really giving me that confidence that I didn't have previously to do that. But I really want to affirm maybe I keep saying affirm. I want to highlight and showcase story and lore and like history and like science and like everything that is a part of gaming, has been a part of gaming, but kind of has been overshadowed by just gameplay, which is I think is the most important part of gaming in a sense. But there's also like whole teams and people and like just history, really, world history that's put into these universes that we immerse ourselves in, that I really want to, from the most like user-friendly approach, but still painting this picture of like, I want it to feel like an adventure, but one where you come out learning something new, but not in a way that's very like White Tower, like university, like formal, but still like is informative. So that's the part that's like hard to do because it requires an incredible amount of research, but I love it, but I have time to do it now. So that's where I'm at. And like the second part where I was like, I knew the answer before I got on the call was like, while you were talking about Link and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom being kind of like an in-between, I was thinking, and this is stuff that I haven't thought about in a little while because I don't have a ton of people I can talk to on calls about Tears of the Kingdom yet. Because the folks that I normally speak with either don't play Tears or they just haven't beaten it yet. They can take their time. But I'm like, yeah, they can take their time. I'm like clenching my microphone right now. It's like, just like, yeah, I'll be here. It's fine. I just won't talk to anyone for here. It's fine. But I was just thinking, like, there's and I have to go back. I might even just like start a new playthrough of Breath of the Wild just to experience it again. Because I can knock that out in like a week or something. Like I just won't shut myself off from the world. But when you're cooking, like let him cook in Tears of the Kingdom, Link sings a bunch of songs from previous games, and I can't remember if he did that in Breath of the Wild, but a part of me almost, when we were talking about it, okay, because that makes me really lore spiral around Rauru, and I won't get into that now because we do not have time, but hopefully we can talk about this some more because I have another, if it's okay to mention another creator briefly, but I don't know if you watch his stuff. His name is Wiz Catches Lightning on Zelda, on YouTube, on Zelda YouTube. I really went out of my comfort zone and just like did a cold call, and I was like, hey, I love the way that you talk about Zelda. I want to get on a call with you. And we had a mutual friend, so we ended up talking Dukes like for almost 4 hours about Zelda, and we still didn't. So his stuff definitely, you might not agree with everything, but he's so like dreamy and like very like, I don't know if he's into like the magical side of this as much as we are, but everything else, like I had so much fun like talking to him, and we were talking about Rauru because he has a video on Rauru. That's how I came across him. And when you were talking about the different links, I was thinking like, God, what if, I mean, we know that Rauru existed in like Ocarina and in other Zelda games. Like I'm wondering if like when Link gets his arm, if like that's Link getting access to all of his previous incarnations, and that's like why he knows the songs. Like that's a big reach. I understand, but like it's just, I'm like, that would be amazing subtle storytelling because
no. I'm applying that to my headcanon right now. That
like, you know what I mean? Up. Because like Rauru and like that whole quest line of like getting to the final sage, it's like near Farron Woods, and like I have so much lore spiraling around that, dudes. Like I won't bore you with that, but that's like where I'm at right now. It's gonna take me a really long time to get videos out around Zelda.
Like, just sorting out all these thoughts, and Zelda gives you so much you can work with.
So much, and I want to do the research and then just really allow myself to enjoy that process, because as much as I enjoy reading and like my favorite word that you use, pontificating about these things, writing isn't really my strong suit. I'm great at editing, but writing is something that I just get very overwhelmed by. So that's something I'm gradually working myself up to becoming more comfortable with for lore keeping. And
you might just be the type of person to just sit down in front of a camera and just blah, 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 and then edit whatever comes out.
I should probably just do that. Yeah.
Like I've thought about like scripting like video essays before, because I think we both have similar like we hyperfixate and then we just want to gobble it whole, and we want to share it with the world because we're Geminis. We want to share all our knowledge, and there's been so many times I'm like, you know what, I'm really passionate about this subject. I really think I could fill up like an hour of people's times, and then it's like like, wait, I can't write this SpongeBob mode. Like, wait, hold on. I gotta like say this all into a microphone and then like listen back and be like, okay, wow, that sounded great. Like that. So maybe that will help your adventure. Unsolicited, not really.
No, I
advice,
mean,
but
honestly, Dukes, like that's how I had been trying to do content before, like leading up to Tears of the Kingdom. And maybe you can relate to this, but I think I have something like 700 voice notes on my
oh my
phone
god,
and my
relatable.
Apple Watch of just like little thoughts that I have. And I'm like, I'm going to go back and listen to this, but I haven't. So one thing I've been doing, and this is like a full circle moment back to like self-care as a streamer, is like just taking time off, just I'm not feeling like I need to pump content out, but just like enjoy the things that I make, because I feel like if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, it doesn't really matter if other people do. So
Exactly.
just like kind of having that self check-in, and that's something that I feel like has really helped me to like love content still.
Yeah.
And like anytime that I've like been led astray from that, that's when it starts feeling icky. But like it's talking about like Zelda and fantasy and talking with other people that are passionate about it, and really just like feeling that, like maybe passion might feel too strong to some people, but for me that's like what makes me feel alive. And it can be somebody just being passionate about melee characters, or like I don't know,
Say
just
less.
you know what I mean, like it doesn't need to be something that's so like elitist or anything like that. Like I just love seeing people just stoked about whatever, and that's what I love about like spaces like this. It's just, yeah, we just have talked for almost 2+ hours about
Yeah.
everything, and it's felt like no time at all for me. I don't know about you,
Me
but
too. Yeah, like it's so easy to talk with you, and I just want to thank you for coming here into my space and trusting me and trusting the Oddcast liminal space that I've created here enough to share you and all your vulnerableness. You mentioned multiple times, like, I've never mentioned this on stream before, and I appreciate you feeling safe enough in this space to share these parts of you with the world. And I have a deeper understanding of who you are. I always do every time I interact with you, and
likewise.
and I have had nothing but positive and joyful things and memories to say about you throughout the time I've known you. And although we haven't really interacted much outside of mutual spaces, I really do want to foster a friendship with you, because I think that you're a very genuine, heartfelt, creative, and a mirrored Gemini soul to
I
me.
feel the same way. I'm just
Awesome.
really shy, dudes. I'm just really shy, and I like we talked about before. I'm always on like hermit mode, but I feel like I need to embrace that part of the hermit that is not just the solitude, but because that's easy for me to slip into, but just treat it as like a recharge and just like go out on my fool's journey, like you had mentioned, and your tarot, which I love that episode so much. Like I listened back to it, I got so much. A lot of people are very shy to give feedback, but I just want you to know, like, people loved hearing you talk about Zelda tarot so much. So the fact that you have like this podcast now and you were talking about Zelda, like I need to embed that into like my conversations about like I'm always like gushing about you. I'm just like, yeah, I love Dukes. You gotta go and check her out. She's amazing. But like now I have like another like petal of a Dukes like to like spread out to the world. So I'm really proud of you, and like I want to also like work on like us spending time outside of like those mutual spaces, because I don't know, like this life is infinite, but also not. So
Not
I
so.
want to, you know what I mean? So I want to
Yeah.
make sure that,
Yeah, we foster the relationships that matter.
yeah, exactly.
And hey, I hear you. You're shy. I'm a little less shy. I'll make sure to reach out
Yeah.
and be patient as well.
Venus retrograde is almost over, and I've been doing a lot of Venetian cleanup. I got 7th house stellium and Taurus moon. It's been a little rough in a good way. It's like when you're deep cleaning your house. It's just like this freaking sucks, but then you reach a point where you're like, wait a minute, this is awesome. Like everything looks all nice and like.
Have you ever seen Howl's Moving Castle?
I've only seen it once. I loved it. I thought I would be a Sophie. I'm Hal. I fear.
Oh, I was gonna say you're in your Sophie moment where
I'm
she's
in my
like
Sophie
deep
moment,
cleaning
yeah.
the castle, I suppose.
I'm a little bit of a diva.
Oh man, the scene where he gets so upset that his hair turns black is like so relatable.
Like when I saw that, I was just like, oh my god, no, I'm gonna be like Sophie because she has her beautiful dresses and she's so like dainty and femme. And I was like, bro, no, I'm Hal. Oh my god, he's such a brat, but he like cares so much about protecting the people that he cares about, you know. And yeah, I'm in my Sophie cleaning moment. I hope. We'll see how long it goes. It'd be cool if I could just embrace my Calcifer and just be like a little lad. But
oh yeah, he's a silly guy. He's a silly. That's a certified silly little guy.
Yeah, I need to tap into that energy more. I get too serious sometimes. Like I mean, you know, like being a Gemini, we're very chaotic. But I feel like I've been sombering my worm too long, so I need to.
Worm.
Yeah, I need to
let that worm free.
Yeah, we gotta let him free. Which like that's something that I really want to do. You were talking about like grounding and like connecting with Gaia, and like I'm gonna make that a point. Like on Sunday, I have like a free day. I'm gonna like force myself to just go and try to find something that's in nature where I can just get down and dirty because it rains so much in New York. It's lovely.
Oh, you might find some mushrooms then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Let me know all about it, please do. But I guess before we go, is there anything you want to shout out? Shout out your stream, shout out your YouTube. Give everything to us.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna warm up. I'm just all right. I'm amping up. So I'm Nimbly. I forgot to mention this earlier, but my pronouns are she/they. You can find me across the internet at nimbly.garden. I stream on Twitch multiple times a week. I don't have a schedule right now. It's twitch.tv/nimbly. You can listen to my Ethereal Femme podcast, which mostly focuses on lore and folks that enjoy lore. That's anchor.fm/etherealfemme. And you can find me just on the internet being a silly little lass playing Pokemon. I cannot wait to talk to you about Pokemon lore. It's going to be like another year though, Dukes, because there's so much game. There's so much.
I will follow you game to game and talk about every game.
There is so much lore. Like,
I love these games. I know.
Pokemon
I'm excited to talk about Pokemon too. But same for me. Like, I was trying to figure out how to do like an Oddcast deep dive. I was like, I might have to go like gen to gen. I might have to do like Gen 1, Gen 2.
I would love that so much. Like, it is so confusing. Like, even playing you can't even, it's not even like Ocarina where you can like go back to the beginning and understand the story. You have to like, I don't know. It's so fascinating, but it is so confusing, and it doesn't seem like there's a consensus because it like skips. But it's so fun to look into. So I would love to get like your perspective on it, like even before I do my own like playthroughs. Because well,
I'm literally always down to talk Pokemon. And I guess one final question for you: what's your favorite Pokemon?
Oh, okay. I'm very basic. My all-time favorite Pokemon, this is probably a red flag, but you know, it's for sentimental reasons. It's Pikachu. Pokemon Yellow was like my first Pokemon game that I fully finished. It was my sister's favorite Pokemon. I think it still is one of her favorites, and I played like Hey You Pikachu and like all those games, and I think it's just like I think that Pikachu is not a meta Pokemon really in any sense, but like I think it's just he as a symbol, as like an emblematic part of like my childhood, and like outside of that sentimentality, like I love Eevee because he's like all that fluidity, and Celebi just because I feel like that would be me as a Pokemon little time wizard, like onion fairy. Yeah, so those are I'm a boomer, so that's where it is for me. But as I play through the games, it may change.
True, yeah. You I know that my favorite Pokemon evolved a whole bunch through all my different save files.
What is yours?
Oh, mine is Flaffy. I like Flaffy.
Oh, Flaffy is a baby, baby.
I like the Porygon line. I like Porygon 2, Porygon Z. I think they're so cool.
Wait, Porygon Z?
Oh yeah. He's
Wait,
cool. Here, I'm gonna send you a gif.
Okay.
Porygon Z. Oh, look at him. He's wiggling.
Oh, I have seen this baby is so cute. Which game is this? This is a DS
Good
game,
question.
right?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know.
It's maybe black or white.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
I've heard that the story in Black 2 and White 2 are really good. Yeah.
Oh, I get pumped up just thinking about them. They're easily the best stories in Pokemon.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah,
but,
my sister loves them. Okay, anyways, so yeah, we'll keep you in there. No, it's fine. But I adore you. You're the best. I'm so happy that you're doing this. You're on episode, I don't know what episode this will be, but you're on episode
5. This will be 5.
5. That's amazing. You just started. You're killing it.
Thank you. I'm surprised at myself, honestly. This has been quite a labor of love. Tons of Mercury retrograde silliness has already occurred, and but I'm happy. I am super happy, in fact, to be here and to be the humble host on the Oddcast. So I think that's it. I
guess I'll just say thank you again for having me on. It's the Lazy Facey Oddcast.
Mm-hmm.
I am excited to hear what comes next for you.
I mean, I could talk about the next episode if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
So next,
get a sneak peek.
Yeah. So next episode. This is actually an in between week. So next episode will be next week, the week following this Monday that this comes out. So this episode, just so you know, Nimbley, will be coming out on September 4th. If everything goes well.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to boom right out there. And then so this next episode that's coming out right after this one will be on September 11th. And it will be for the upcoming Virgo lunation. We're going to be doing an astrological forecast. I have not even looked at the astrology yet, so I hope it's cool.
Hell yeah.
I hope that's good.
I'm excited.
Virgo season, and onwards.
Yes. We got this. I feel like Virgo energy is kind of needed right now with all the retrogrades. It's like, you know what? Usually Virgo energy feels a little restrictive to me, just wanting to be a little lad, but I need it right now because the world is astrologically kind of burning. But the Jupiter retrograde I've heard is not going to be too bad. Like, because it's a benefic and also it's in Taurus, which is just a silly little happy baby.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that one either. I think that's mostly just like, let's just watch and see what happens and maybe not overspend our money. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're in pumpkin season though, so I gotta make grocery lists when I go outside. But
true and real. Hi. Sorry for the awkward outro beginning. I kind of fucked up the audio for this too because I don't know. This is just such a technical Mercury retrograde. I can't explain that, huh? But I just want to say thank you all for listening to this wonderful chat that I had with Nimbley. Listening back to it was such a joy. I was smiling and laughing along the whole time. And I hope that you were able to, I don't know, laugh along with us. And I hope that you enjoyed. I mean, please follow Nimbley everywhere, she said. She is so worth the follow, very active on all social media, and a joy to behold in every space that she's in. Once again, I hope you enjoyed the conversation we had. I look forward to when we get to conversate more, whenever that is, either here or not recorded. I am looking forward to when I get to jump back onto the Ethereal Femme Lorekeeper podcast to talk about Pokemon in particular. That'll be fun. But I think that's it from me. Thank you so much for listening to the Oddcast's first ever interview with Nimbley. Aren't they a rock star? I admire them so much. And I hope you all have a wonderful Monday and onward forever. By the time this episode comes out, it will be a nice Taurus moon, just like Nimbley. All right. You take care, everyone. Thank you again. And once again, a special thank you for Nimbley being the interview guinea pig and also being such a trooper as we had to fight tooth and nail through technology as Mercurials, you know. And wouldn't you know it, mid-recording the outro, It just stops recording. Classic. Alright, I'm just gonna wrap this up then. Once again, thank you all for listening, and thank you again to KNIMBLEY for being my interview guinea pig. You rule. All of you guys rule. And I'll see you next time during our upcoming lunation. And I hope you enjoy this Oddcast coming out on a Taurus moon, just like KNIMBLEY. Alright, take care everyone. Bye bye.